Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. for that lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Principal, for having us here. As was mentioned, I'm not only a 12-floor resident, but I'm also a proud parent of Kelly Trophy.
Yeah.
It's really important for us to be here today as the Chicago Environmental Justice Network, and just to give you a sense of who we are. We're 5 different organizations from across the south and southwest side and southeast side of Chicago that are fighting back against environmental racism. And you might ask yourself, what does that mean, and what does that have anything to do with today's conversation? Well, it has a lot to do with the 12th ward. On communities like us, 22nd Ward, and other wards, that are the first to feel the impacts of climate change, or are the ones who least contribute to climate change problems. And what that looks like in our communities is more flooding. What that looks like in our communities is people dying because they don't have access to air conditioners, and the summers are getting hotter. What that means is our water is more likely to be polluted with lead, right? And again, we're contributing the least to these things, but we're contributing our tax dollars to a system in the city of Chicago that is actually aggravating and adding to environmental racism instead of fixing it. You can look at the Hillsborough explosion that happened in Little Village. You can look to putting that asphalt in McKinley Park across the street from the school, or excuse me, next to the school, across the street from a park. You can look at it in the fight of a hunger strike to keep General Iron from coming to the south side because they had enough metal shredders and didn't want more. Our community suffer from asthma. We suffer from more health problems because we can't afford insurance because we're undocumented and don't have access to health care. The list goes on and on. And so we fight because we know that our communities deserve more. And we were really proud to co-sponsor tonight's event because as 12 residents and as environmental justice organizations and communities, we want to hear from these candidates. What are they going to do to not only protect our communities, but to stop these things from continuing to happen? Right? How are they going to support the work that we're doing on the ground to try to pass things like the cumulative impact ordinance that will say this community is overpolluted, this community cannot take more warehouses, this community cannot take more air pollution, and instead of telling us their warehouse jobs are the future of our neighborhood, how about you give us jobs that actually speak to our abilities as a neighborhood and actually build our economic opportunities in our community? On the state level, we're trying to pass an EJ bill that says and identifies what is an EJ community, what is a community that is an environmental justice community. And so, again, we were very proud to help sponsor tonight, and thank you to Neighbors for Environmental Justice for this amazing space, to be able to hear finally from 12 board candidates the last 2 elections in a row that I participated in, to be able to hear again where they stand in protecting and supporting our communities. So, on behalf of CJN, thank you so very much. Go Trojan.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Quick announcement, our Mandarin translator didn't show up. But we do have, if anybody does need translation, please come to get your aparato or your device to get translation. If you need translation, please come from this corner right here to get your device for translation.
Thank you for that. Once again, thank you so much, Tim. Thank you so much, Principal Martellano. Next, I'd like to introduce our moderator tonight, Alma Campos. Alma Campos is an award-winning reporter living in McLean Park. Her work has appeared in Southside Weekly, Univision, City Bureau, Face Chicago Business, PBS, and others. Alma is currently a senior editor at Southside Weekly, where she has expanded coverage of immigrant and working class communities on the South Side. She is co-moderating tonight with the help of County High School students. They will be asking the candidates questions during our County High School students as well as questions from community members. Thank you so much.
Over here, and then you again. Si necesitan aparato para traducir en español, sorry, si necesitan traducción, por favor vengan a recoger su aparato. Sí, yeah.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor for me to be here as someone who lives in the 12th ward. So I really appreciate that. I wanted to just talk a little bit about how the moderation is going to work. Our schedule tonight will start with the candidates' opening statements, followed by pre-selected questions submitted by residents and Philly high school students. We will alternate the questions order between moderators, between myself and at the midway point in our forum, we will also switch to audience questions. So we really encourage you to fill out a card that you received when you walked in. To start filling out the questions now and during the moderation. During the forum tonight, we set up a few ground rules. Just wanted to go over those. One, we ask that if you have a question for candidates, please write on one of the note cards I just mentioned. We will collect note cards during the forum, and ourselves, we will ask the candidates the questions with the time that is allowed. We have a timekeeper in the front row, right over here, who will raise the clock page to signal that the time is up. So when you have 30 seconds left, you're going to see 30 seconds right over there. As you come in, you should have received a green paper. Right? If a candidate says something that you agree with, you can waive it. If a candidate says something that you disagree with, you can waive the red one. Please be respectful of your fellow neighbors and residents. Yelling or disruptive behavior is not acceptable at this community event. You will be asked to leave if you exhibit unacceptable behavior. And I also like to remind you that this forum is non-partisan and will not include any candidate's endorsements. Thank you. So you'll have 2 minutes for your opening statement. And 1.5 minutes for the remainder of the questions. We're going to start with your opening statement. Good evening, 12th Ward. Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that this is as engaging as possible. This is literally a dream come true for me. This is unbelievable. Thank you to all the organizers that put this forum together. As I was canvassing, I've seen the ways in which they have canvassed the ward, and that's community organizing spirit. They also give us some accommodations, and that's what it really means to also be organizers, to know that who we're serving, and that's working class families. So they've eliminated so many different barriers. Thank you, Kelly High School, for hosting us. And thank you all for attending this forum. Thank you for showing up. Unfortunately, our elected official did not show up. And so I am happy that I am the candidate who chose to be here with you all today in community, and I intend to continue to show up and stand up shoulder to shoulder with our communities. My name is Julia Ramirez. I am a community organizer, I am a social worker, a restorative practitioner, and a byproduct of right here in the 12th Ward. I'm running to be your next alderwoman, so vote for me. I'm from and for the community. I live down the street. I grew up on Rockwell. Kelly High School was a community school for so many of my family. And I am so proud to be here tonight, thinking about my mom that used to attend this school. I know what it feels like to live in a ward in which an alderman hasn't stood up for us and has been completely disconnected. And unfortunately, my opponent is following in their footsteps. I'm here not because I was appointed, but because I want to earn your vote. I want people to be participatory, and I want people to be politically engaged. It's unfair that our appointed alderwoman is not here today, and I believe that together we can win this race. This is our time, and I hope that you guys can all give me the chance. Thank you so much. Right, the next question, why is this position important to you? What are your guiding principles and what motivates you to run for alderman?
So, as I was mentioning in the beginning, it truly is a dream come true because as a young person growing up in Brighton Park, I just remember just going through certain things, and when you're young, you're not really realizing the systems that are at play, but you make the best of what you have. And then I started getting other opportunities.
question. How will you involve students and youth in your position? And what plans do you have to improve the quality of life for us?
When I think about the quality of life here, I think about the ways in which we have certain spaces that we may not have for very much longer. So what I want to do as an older person, when I think of the quality of life of young people, I want to protect the spaces that we already have, and that is our schools. Our schools are in danger of being defunded coming in 2025, and so we need to prepare to make sure we have quality free education. Along with the institutions that already exist, it is not enough. We need more spaces. We have been demanding a youth center to the aldermen for over a decade. We need more green space. And when I'm thinking about physical space for you guys to learn and grow, we actually need resources and we need funding to make that happen. And I know people in nonprofit sector, organizers that are not getting paid enough. And so what I want to do is I want to prioritize our funding, and I want to make sure that there's a direct pipeline for mentors, for organizers, for intervention workers who work with our youth. And ultimately, I want you guys to sort of lead the way. I want the aldermanic office to be something that works on a multi-generational level. I'm not here to be here 20, 30, 50 years. I'm here as a position so we can grow into our next generation to use and to prosper.
Residents in the 12th ward often complain that they sometimes want to submit an issue to the elder person's office, but there isn't a response. What can be done to change the responsiveness of this office?
My number one priority is, unfortunately, this community, the 12th ward, has been disenfranchised. And so what that means is that when people don't know what the system is, how to ask the appropriate questions, the people that have been in power stay in power and make decisions without us. So what's happening is that the 12th ward is third last in voting, right? And so people ask me, you're only here for my vote, and I really want that to change. I want people to feel empowered to know the system. I want it to be run by people, not by me, Uriarrides. And so what that means is like really getting to the root of the cause of decades of disenfranchisement. So organizing behind this. I think BPNC does a wonderful job in doing this. So educating people, we want to make sure that it's equitable. We want to make sure that it's not just going to one community versus another. We need to start to bridging that gaps. And so I asked a lot of the organizers that are already doing stuff in McKinley Park, let's add that value and let's organize with Breton Park, because ultimately we're not bounded by our communities, we're not bounded by our wards. We need to collect and come together, and I know that I can be an ally in that within City Council.
What are some ideas and plans you have to help with the shooting and violence that are taking place in our communities? How do you plan on helping the youth who are being targeted by the local gangs?
So as I was mentioning, I grew up right here in Brighton Park, and I had a younger brother who was killed by gun violence in 2014. My younger brother was 3 years younger than me, and growing up, like I would go to Kelly Park, and there was just this reality that a lot of young people just have to live with. And I believe that it's because of the ways in which we haven't provided opportunities for people really to grow. And so my brother was one of the people that was subjected to some of the violence that was happening in our communities. And I remember, like, I would be afraid, like, when my brother would leave the house. What I really want to build is I want to make sure that I'm youth-centered, I'm youth-focused. As a person who has been actually organizing in anti-violence initiatives and have been working with young people as a young person myself, I want to continue doing that. When I'm knocking doors, a lot of people tell me, like, they know who the kid is, but they don't know where to send them. And so I believe that we need to start connecting our local political office with our community resources. We need to make sure that we're supporting one another and making sure that people are protected.
Thank you. In Utility Park, 53% of the residents are Hispanic and 30% are Asian. And in Brighton Park, 8% are Hispanic and 10% Asian American residents. How will you ensure the Spanish-speaking and Mandarin-speaking residents in the ward can fully participate in all programming? For example, with the Chicago Park District after school and public meetings, for example, with zoning and development in the ward.
Can you repeat the second part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah. So how will you ensure that the Spanish-speaking and Mandarin residents in the ward can fully participate in all programming? And then I gave you some examples like the Chicago Park District and public meetings involving zoning and other things.
Awesome. I actually just had a meeting with yesterday, and I met a resident that received one of my letters, and we were sharing stories about how long I was asked, well, how long have you been in the ward? Because my family has been here for 50 years. Well, he's a Lithuanian, and he came to the United States in the 1940s, and he had a very similar story to my family that came from Mexico. He told me I moved on 18th of August, and I'm like, that's where my family moved. And he's like, then I moved to Red Park. And I'm like, that's my family. And so I know that the Southwest side have been a host to immigrant families, and we need to still be considerate. We need to be supportive. And our ward is ever changing. It is majority Hispanic, but we have a growing Asian community, and I want to make sure that we're working hand in hand together and know that we have a lot more in common. Our stories are so similar, and so when we're thinking about the ways in which we go to the grocery store, and actually people do speak Mandarin and they do speak Spanish, but you know the other things that they can't do is actually fill out paperwork by themselves. They can't pick up the phone and make an appointment for themselves. I know this firsthand because I grew up with my grandparents, and I've had to do this with them. And so I want to make sure that not only do we have bilingual, trilingual staff, but that they are also culturally competent for our Mandarin and our Spanish speakers in the 12th ward.
The 12th ward is in the top 5 wards with the most car, pedestrian, bicycle crashes in the city. What traffic calming measures will you put in place, and how will you increase safe walkability and bikeability on streets like Archer Avenue? How will you increase the reliability of public transit in our area?
You know, unfortunately, people are dying due to our city's infrastructure. What's happening is the most vulnerable and the people that don't have cars are trying to use public transit, they're trying to walk and bike, whether it be to school or to their jobs. And unfortunately, we have been very car-centric, and we've been prioritizing cars. The reason why we need to stop prioritizing cars overall is about public safety and also thinking about environmental justice, right? How are we moving forward? How are we making sure that we are more green, that we're thinking about building community? People want something to walk to, people want to be able to ride their bikes for their health, etc. And so I know as an older person, through our budget, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing more walkability. We need to prioritize bicyclists and their overall safety. And the ways in which we can do this is by infrastructure, making sure that we have curb extensions, raised crosswalks, concrete bike lanes. These are things that are proven to help save lives. And so I will make sure as an older person that we prioritize that and be able to, get to the train safely, walking your kids to school, making sure that every day we're able to walk and build a community with each other.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to remind everyone to fill out the card that you got when you walked in. If you have a question in mind, somebody will come around and collect them. So take a moment to do that. Going on to our next question. The majority of Brighton Park and Nickleby Park residents are rent burdened, spending 30 to 50% of their incomes on housing costs. What's your solution to lowering housing costs? Conversely, what steps will you take to make sure the 12th floor doesn't turn into another Pilsen with gentrification
and commercialization pushing residents out of the neighborhoods?
Gentrification is a real issue that's coming to the southwest side. We are already seeing it in our Pilsen neighborhoods, and people are seeing it really all across the city. And so we need to make sure that we're building protections for the next 5 and 10 years. As an older person, I want to support the accessory dwelling unit, and so what that will do is actually provide more affordable housing units. Unfortunately, we were able to work with CHA, and there was a proposal to have 100 affordable housing units, but it happened to be somewhere near the Mad Asphalt plant. And so we can no longer have affordable housing units in that location. And so what's happening is that the alderman has really left us with so much work. So I want to make sure that we get rid of the Mad Asphalt plant, that we have Pershing that is completely lively, where people can be housed, people can go to the park and go to school and not have to deal with the pollution. Another idea is to make sure that we're working on a state level. We want to help both homeowners and renters and have caps, because unfortunately we have a lot of seniors in the 12th ward and they are living independently, and so we need to create caps to make sure that people can stay here in the 12th.
What is your plan to fight community polluters like Matt Asphalt? Do you support the creation of a Department of the Environment, and why or why not?
Unfortunately, Mayor Lori Lightfoot had put out a budget and it did not include the Department of Environmental Health. As a person that will be your alderwoman, that will hopefully when you're voted to be your alderwoman, I'm going to make sure that we start prioritizing the way in which we spend. We need to make sure that we have the parameters to get rid of something like Mad Asphalt, and not only just have a department, but making sure that we have good people in the department. And the reason why I bring this up is because George Cárdenas was the chair of environmental protection, and so we need to make sure that the people that are working for us have our best interests. And so, yes, I want to make sure that we bring the Department of Environment, but I also want to be an ally and support the organizers like M4J and make sure that they have the grants appropriate to have air sensors to collect data and making sure that we're able to protect our families from any future corporations coming to our board.
Next question. What will you do to revitalize Archer Avenue and 35th Street? How would you help make our aging vacant storefronts viable to support small businesses?
I've actually made a good friend of a business owner here. She owns Pet Accessories on 35th Street, and thank you so much for being here. And I'm so happy to be able to listen, talk to business owners. What I've heard from various people is that they're looking to be leaders. People who already have businesses, they know the type of struggle that people are living with inflation costs. During the pandemic, a lot of businesses have closed. People have asked for a chamber of commerce. So I am in support of creating a chamber of commerce for Brighton Park, McKinley Park. And the reason why this is so important is because we need our business owners to be able to create a network within each other and support each other. It's one thing opening a business, but it's another thing staying open. People need the added support. And so what I want to make sure is that the tip dollars are working for our communities and that we're using SSA funds appropriately. So we need to start connecting the dollars to the right people and making sure that we have businesses and places that we can hang out and places that are ours that we can just meet and study. And I'm really excited about the possibility for building up Archer Avenue and 35th Street.
Both candidates listed school funding as one of the issues they would address. How much power/influence does an older person actually have when it comes to school funding, and if any? What will you do to make schools better?
I actually have been working for the Chicago Public Schools for the last 3 years. I'm a re-engagement specialist, and I just graduated as a licensed school social worker. And so I love dearly our Chicago Public Schools. I know that in talking and having conversations with families are very honest and open about them feeling worried about their kids going to the local schools because of safety, or they want their kids to have certain programs, and those programs aren't offered in the 12th ward. And so what really concerns me is that that's not the case in other neighborhoods, but it happens to be the case in the 12th ward and the southwest side. And we've seen school closing on the west sides, and so I want to make sure that I'm a loud voice, that I'm an advocate to making sure that the funds go where it's needed, so our schools stay open, and not just stay open, but making sure that they have all the resources for programming, for social workers, and adequate staff to make sure that our kids are getting quality education, and that our families here want to stay here and send their kids here, and it could be schools that we're proud of.
Thank you. Next question, what is your vision for deciding the outcome of development rezoning process?
I want to be the first alderwoman to have a community zoning process, and I will be so excited to be able to do that with all of you. Unfortunately, there has been a huge barrier in which people organize, and they have clear assessments and needs about what they want zoning to be a part of, and there really is no process that includes community. So I want to make sure that one of my first steps is making sure that we have a community zoning process. I hope that, as I have mentioned before, that it includes the people that are already organizing, but that we bring in maybe the people that have felt like they haven't been a part of the decision making, and that we can make sure that it's working for all of our residents in a very collaborative way.
Thank you. I think we're waiting for some questions from the audience. And then we have Steve Stoker, who's a freshman at Kelly High School, who's going to be joining us to help with the Q&A session.
We're going to continue shortly this afternoon.